Hello there, my name is Chris, and I'm an ex-Evangelical Worship Leader who lives in Las Vegas. Now, a couple of my videos talked about my relationship with Jesus and how I'm no longer a believer, and my relationship with the church that I first became saved in. I became an evangelical believer in 1992. I was a born-again, heart on fire, butt in love, crazy with Jesus Christian all throughout the 90s, all the way to the early 2000s. And what really put me off of Christianity was meeting other Christians and seeing how they treat people, not only people outside of their religion, but how they treat themselves. That really bothered me to see all the hypocrisy. But another thing that bothered me was the manipulation and the lies that can go on within church. Now, this is what made me stop going to church in the early 2000s. Now, later on, years later, after doing more and more research on the historicity of the Bible, I learned that the Bible really doesn't line up with recorded history, and all of the miraculous stories that are recorded in the Bible more or less did not happen in recorded history. This blew my mind, not only because I was a crazy in love believer of Christ, but it blew my mind because I am a historical buff and I love the ancient world and how those people lived their lives. What really wondered me about the Bible was the diversity of all the writings, that they span several thousand years of writing and history, or at least the history of the Hebrews as they wanted to tell it. I love the music, I love the poetry, I love the wisdom that can be shared from the Bible, but as far as miraculous parts written inside of it, I no longer believe. Now, as a worship leader, I would lead people into the throne room of God every Sunday morning and Wednesday night with music, and I believe practice on Thursdays, that's just a thing. Now, I still follow evangelical worship channels just to see what worship leaders are doing nowadays. But back in the day, it's a book of songs with chords written on top of them. And most of these songs were really big in the 1980s and the 2000s. And I'm going to share this lovely song with you called As the Deer, written by Martin Nystrom. Now, worship is supposed to get people in the mood like you're on a date, but you're going to meet the God on the date. So when you're on a date, you light candles, you put like perfume on your light bulbs, you try to create a mood for the person you're trying to entertain. The same deal is with music and worship in church. They're trying to get you in the mood for Jesus. They're trying to get you in the mood for a long, boring sermon that has nothing to do with life, quoting scriptures that were written thousands of years before anything that you would ever experience that has nothing to do with what you're doing in the modern world. So let's throw in a rock band before that so you're not too bored when you go to church next Sunday and the next Sunday and the next Sunday. So the way music is used to manipulate people has been talked about on YouTube on a lot of different channels. You could look up manipulation in worship. You could look up how, like in your search engine, you could look up how does worship manipulate the audience. But basically music, like all music in church, manipulates the audience into being believers. So there's several ways to do that. You have a major chord. It's happy, it's light, it's bright. It makes people feel a little lighter. You have a minor chord. It's got a nice, darker, warmer tone to it, but it brings down the mood. You have bright, and you have maybe a little bit dramatic, right? So we're going to play the song, and I'm going to play it in several different ways that would totally pull the strings and the emotions of the people who are listening to them, which is what the worship leader's job is supposed to do. They're supposed to get you in the mood for Jesus. Very, very, very Grandiose is the style I'm going for first. And then I'm going to play with it a little bit and make it more like lighter, brighter, and fun, okay? So, as the deer panteth for the waters, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. And now let's tinkle a little bit. As the deer panteth for the waters, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. Pretty, huh? But more can be done to this song. When you go to church and you hear that Christian rock band, usually they turn it up a notch. As the deer panteth for the waters, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. Oh, as the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. Just a little bit different, huh? Music. The power of music. It manipulates. It brings you in. And it makes you stay in church. It did it to me, and it will do it to you. If you are an evangelical believer, if you're a musician, don't get caught up in the worship team. I do love the time that I got to spend playing music. I met some really awesome musicians, but at the same time, I was operating under false pretenses. I was believing in something that's unprovable, unhistorical, no evidence whatsoever. And I know that's what faith is, but I've grown to a place in my life to where I'm relying on science and reason rather than faith to get me through my life. And science and reason has facts and it has evidence. And it's not based upon a really nice story. It's not based upon magic. And that's what Christianity is. It's magic. It's ancient. It's Bronze Age superstition packaged in American Christianity. I hope everybody out there continues to be safe and healthy, and love, health, happiness, healing from Las Vegas.